back to China where you came from and take your coronavirus back to Wuhan. I'm a Canadian. Yes, Canadians like butts. I'm Canadian.
Maybe remember that scene. It was at a Toronto area supermarket earlier this month. A customer launched into a racial tirade after staff asked him to wear a mask as required. He refused. Some business owners and employment law experts say mandatory mask bylaws are creating issues like this one. Some people have a short fuse because of all the restrictions, and businesses are left trying to enforce those rules. Well, for more on these challenges, our Chase team has reached Andrew Monkhouse. He's an employment lawyer. He's based out of Toronto. Great to have you on the program, Andrew. Let me pick your brain. And right away, when you put the onus on employees to police the use of masks, is that kind of thing that we just showed our viewers only to be expected?
It's going to happen. This is controversial times. It's difficult. You're pitting two groups of people against each other, and you're going to have conflict if people aren't careful. No one was prepared for this sort of thing, and it's the sort of issue that's going to come up.
I want to take you to a story that we are talking about today. It's about a 73-year-old man who ended up being shot by police. It started at a grocery store in Minden, Ontario, when the man refused to wear a mask. He got a little agitated. Well, we spoke with an employee who works at that store. It's called Value Mart. It's in Minden, Ontario, as I mentioned, and she raises the issue of how difficult this is for employees. Let's listen to her.
I think that we shouldn't have to, force that, because honestly, it's just bringing chaos, to be honest. Like, if we didn't have to force him and not remove him, but tell him that he couldn't come into the store, nothing would have happened really, right? He would have got his groceries and went along with his day.
I mean, it might be hard to prove a negative that nothing would have happened if he had been let in and got his groceries, went home. But does it point out the cracks in these regulations?
It does. It's pushing a lot of requirements on the companies. Companies are being asked to do a lot. It's important that people don't take too extreme steps. If someone doesn't want to wear a mask, it's possible to work with that individual, to have the groceries delivered outside, something like that. But it also is reasonable for companies to ask that people wear masks. Generally in Canada, a company is allowed to decline someone coming into their store, but pushing so much on the companies rather than on the government to set up a structure to choose to deny people or not, it's asking a lot of especially small and medium-sized businesses.
And is it asking just too much of employees? Here's a kid trying to make money to go back to school in September, university, whatever, college, and they're making so much an hour, and now they've got this added responsibility of telling these adults who say, screw you, I don't want to wear a mask. You got to put one on, sir, to come into the store. How fair is that?
Yeah, nobody should be put in an unsafe situation. Safety should be the first step. It's taking things to a far extreme to have these sorts of issues, but it's important for employees to know to try and de-escalate the situation and to work with their employers, make sure their employers have good policies. It's not a question of if someone's going to say they're not going to wear a mask, it's about when, and you have to know what's going to happen, and you have to have a better plan that's not going to cause the incidents that we saw in this case, eventually leading to someone being shot. That's not safe. It's not good for anybody.
So if the store owners, the employers, have the right to ask customers to wear a mask, should they then in turn provide training for employees in how to deal with people who are going to get a little agitated?
They absolutely should. That's incredibly important, that there should be policies in place and there needs to be knowledge passed to those employees. It's also, we see a recommendation we make all the time that if you're going to require people to wear masks, you should be probably ordering masks and having them available. That diffuses the situation a lot more. A lot of the situations we see, and I don't know about this situation, but a lot of the situations that we see involve where someone is told to wear a mask, they don't have a mask, so then they get angry. They've left their house, they've went out. That's a problem. You need to make it easier, not harder, for your customers and for your employees. That's something that's important for businesses to think about.
That kind of stuff, common sense. If you don't have one, we'll provide one for you. I don't see issues arising out of that. It's the extraordinary cases that we showed our viewers at the beginning of this interview, the incident that happened in Minden that is being investigated by the Special Investigations Unit. Perhaps it's just that every store should have a bouncer. Is that the way to go?
We certainly do recommend having someone at the door. Putting up a sign is no substitute. People often aren't going to read a sign. They're just going to walk in. If it says maximum 8 people or if it says you have to wear a mask, a lot of people aren't going to read that. Some people, their first language might not be English, so it might blur by them. It's best to have someone as a control at the door to make sure that the people coming in are aware of the rules and that that's being passed on to them in terms of making sure you don't have too many people and you're not breaking the law. So it is highly recommended where possible.
What would you say to an employee who's, looking to keep their job, but they don't want the added pressure of being mask police? What case do they have?
Yeah, they don't have to. No employee has to do anything that's dangerous, but it is reasonable for them to tell customers. What's important is to make sure that they're telling their employer that they need additional training if they believe they need additional training, and for those employees to make sure to also stay calm. It isn't a case where a customer should be trying to say that their way is their way or the highway, but it also shouldn't be the case for employees. But the number one concern for employees is to be able to stay safe and also to keep everybody safe in this instance.
It's so frustrating for so many people in these times. I know a lot of people are bored. A lot of them are tired of not being able to do what they want to do. They feel the restrictions are causing them to, have other issues. Kids are at home. So should we all just take, exhale, take a deep breath. This too shall pass.
Well, I can't give specific legal advice on that, but I think it's great life advice. I think that's true. I know myself, I've found that you can get, more difficult and sometimes jump to anger. Nobody's happy about the current situation, but it's nobody's fault. And we're all working through it the best we can. And I think as Canadians, we should be proud of that. But we have to continue to do that and to understand other people's opinions as well. And that's going to go a long way. The customer isn't necessarily always right, but respect gets respect. And I think that customers and employees need to remember that.
Yeah, I hope we don't see, as we saw with road rage, I hope we don't see mask rage. But I want to thank you for being on the program, Andrew. Pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Andrew Munghouse is an employment lawyer. He is based in Toronto.